Today, after the Nearpod, you're going to be looking at two different IXLs. The first one is Z.1 and it's identifying functions. You can see in that top left corner what you should see as well on your screen. So to go over a few of these, I'm going to first just mention something about functions. With a function, you have inputs, which are your x values, and outputs that your y values are. And for each input, you can only have one output. For example, if I have an input of 1 and my output is 3, okay, then if I have another input of 1, my output has to be 3. But if it's anything else, so if it's a 3, we're in the clear. But if I get another input of 1 and then I get an output of 4, this is where it went wrong and it is not a function. So for each input, you can only have one output. They can be repeated outputs, but only one for one. Okay, so with that, we're going to look at this first question. And this one looks like a graph, so we can use a vertical line test, which states that if the vertical line, as I drag it from left to right or right to left on a graph, it only crosses the graph or coordinate points at one point. So we see already that this one here, we have a vertical line that is going through 2 at the same time. So this is going to not be a function. So not a function. Let's look at one more. So sometimes you'll get a pair of ordered pairs. Sometimes you'll see a graph. So what we need to look is if the output and inputs match up. So here we have 9. We have a 9 and a 12, a 20 and a 6, and a 13 and a 15. So all of our inputs are different. So we don't have to worry about that. So this one is a function. All right, and let's look at this last one. It's a table. So we've seen a graph, we've seen coordinate pairs, and now we have a table. So again, each input, which are our x, has to only have one output, which is our y's. So here we have a 15 and a 19. We're good. And then we see that there's a 0 and a 0. So these are the same input. But if they have the same input, that means they need to have the same output. But here we have two different ones. To be a function, they need to be the same output. But here we have two different outputs, and that is where we went wrong. So this is not a function. Okay, and then I'm going to show one of a graph. So we already saw one originally, but this one's just going to be straight graphs. So again, this is going to be when you use the vertical line test. So you'll want to take a straight line or a pencil or something, a piece of paper, and if you can take your vertical line here and take it across the entire graph and it only touches one point of the graph at once, so watching this right edge of my graph, so here it's only crossing the graph at 1, and if I move it across, you see it's only moving across as 1. So this one passes the vertical line test, which means it is a function. And this one here, we have a vertical line test since it's a graph. So this one here, our graph down here, is a horizontal line across. So because it's a horizontal line, my vertical line only touches the graph at 1 point each. So this would also be a function. All right, well, I hope this helps. Remember that one input has to produce a different output, and they can only repeat if the inputs can only repeat if the output also repeats.